guys, I'm not always having fun fishing and playing around. Sometimes I actually have to work, believe it or not. Check out these new projects I've been working on for the big boat. Well, down here at the marina, still haven't really gotten into engine work and getting any closer to untying the lines and motoring away. I've still pretty much been concentrating on getting her ship shape, and lately I've been doing some woodworking projects. But most of that stuff has been happening at the house, not here on the boat. Well, the old treads on the ladder going up to the flying bridge were really beat up. And I had these pieces of oak laying around, so I cut the new treads, and here you see little supports or gussets that I cut for them. I had to bevel the top, and on the back side I had to make a concave shape so it will go around the steel pipes. Jappy seems to like them. These are them all stained up with a bit of varnish. That's spray varnish right there that I had put on it. At this point the treads were already done. All I had to do was put some sticky tape on top and they would be finished. Here they are installed on the ladder. I even put a few pieces of that sticky tape up on the top fiberglass step. That made things a lot safer. While I had the woodworking tools out, I whipped together some hooks. As you can see here, this is to support the boat hook that you would use to grab the lines when you're coming back to the dock. The boat hook was a gift from a friend of mine, and I just couldn't find store-bought hooks that would support it, so I had to go ahead and make my own. These bungees here would hold it down while I was underway. There's a piece of carpet I'm using to apply the stain because I had no more chip brushes. And there they are installed. There's the hook in place. You just wrap the bungee around. Bada bing, bada boom. And look at that. Beautiful. Now on the inside of the boat, you can see here some styrofoam covers that I got over the windows to keep the light and the heat out of the cabin during these summer days. I had gotten an idea while looking at pictures of tarpon online to make a wooden scale, and that just led into the idea of, hey, you know, maybe I can make some window blinds out of scales. So yeah, I took that scale and I drew a bunch of templates, cut them out with the jigsaw, and then took those pieces over to the scroll saw. This was already looking like it was going to be a lot of work. A lot of work. All these pieces had to be sanded and handled 2 or 3 times. But eventually I had enough of them where I could lay them out onto a piece of plexiglass, which I put on top of a light. And this gave me an idea of what they'd look like with sun shining through them. I kind of really liked the way the light was playing off of it too. These wooden scales were looking pretty neat. So I decided to go ahead with it. I bought some lumber to make a frame. I didn't have a miter saw, so I had to use a circular saw to cut these. But once that was assembled, then what I did is I grabbed all the scales and I had to glue them together using toothpicks, and this part turned into very meticulous work. And you know, blinds that you have at home usually aren't that sturdy Like, you know, they get beat up a lot, you know, if you bump into them or whatever. So I figured, you know, toothpicks were enough engineering for these projects. The biggest problem was how much work this was actually going to be. I was quickly realizing that I may never finish this project. After these were glued together, I had to clamp them together and let that glue dry for a little bit. They only had to sit like that for about an hour or so. And then I took the clamps off, and then I had to work on the layout. I had that styrofoam template with me, and what I was doing here is I'm just laying all those scales in place where they're going to be, make sure that they're trimmed the right size and everything for the opening. And when I had everything figured out, then I started to install them into the frame. You see, the idea was that they'd all pivot on those toothpicks. Here I got a few of them in place, and they seem to be working pretty good. But when I had the whole thing assembled, one of the issues I was having was that they look good like this, but when you lay it down vertically, you see they all just kind of flop open and do whatever they want. So this was definitely going to be an issue, and I didn't really know how to fix it, and it was going to be a ton more work before I ever got this done, so this project had to be abandoned for now. Well, fortunately, there's never a lack of projects, so I started a new one with some 5-gallon buckets. I drew a line on the buckets and cut them in half. I did this to 2 buckets, and then I placed them together like so. Then, using my wonderful, well, maybe not so wonderful, plastic welding skills, I attached the 2 buckets together. And to test to see if my welds were waterproof, I filled them up just using the garden hose all the way to the top. This project was going to be a DIY composting toilet for the boat. And one way to test to see if it's a toilet or not is see if the dog will drink out of it. Yep, that's a toilet, alright. Jabby approved. Up, Bayard approved too. Well, once I had the buckets made, I needed a wooden housing to enclose them in. I cut a bunch of lines in the plywood here, so I was able to wrap them around and get a nice round shape. There you go. A nice curved housing with a hinged top, a toilet seat, and a handle. What's the deal with the handle? Well, that's an agitator handle, and it needed to be removable. This is my buddy Chris who's helping me out with this. He let me use his tap and die set to cut some threads into the handle, which is just the old bucket handle. After we had the threads cut into one side, we cut threads into the other side as well. And we attached them using this little brass tube that was threaded all the way through. I'll show you why this handle had to be removable. Well, there's that little brass insert right there. And what that's all about, that's part of an agitator that would be in the compost side of this toilet. This is going to be a dry composting toilet. So you got a dry side and you got a wet side. And if you place it inside the housing that I made, and you lower the seats, you can see that there is a dry side on the back and a wet side on the front. It's pretty self-explanatory. You gotta sit if you're a guy or have really good aim and it's supposed to go into the front where there'd be a separate bucket to capture all the liquids, and in the back, every single time he went and did number 2, that's where the handle came into play, because what you'd have to do is go into the side of the housing here, see, and just crank it until it gets tight. Now, as you turn the handle, the agitator turns, and it's going to mix up all that compost and bury your droppings, and that's it. That's pretty much the concept of a dry composting toilet. And there it is, my version of a DIY style. The issue that I have with this, unfortunately, is the wood is, well, it's wood, and it's going to absorb moisture. It's going to be hard to clean. It's actually kind of big. You can see I put a notch in the back here. And I actually have the back of it open and had put a fan in. This fan was going to draw all of any excess fumes or whatever odors out of there, so that when you had your lids down, this one would be down all the time. And I was going to put a seal around here, so that and around here, so when you had both lids down, whatever little air leakage there was going to get sucked up out of the boat with that little fan. So it was probably going to wind up being a nice, odorless, perfectly working composting toilet, except for a couple of things. And that's, you can see here my welding skills leave a lot to be desired, and cleaning it could be an issue. And the main piece here, you saw me liquid test this, and for the most part it held water just fine, but I was having a hard time getting a water bottle, or pee bottle for what it, pee jug for what it is, to fit in the front without much space in between, so that you wouldn't get overspray or whatever and have, you know, leakage inside there that's just going to sit there and stagnate. And I was having a hard time making it waterproof. So I think I actually have to give up on this project.
I mean, honestly, I think this will work. But one of the things I kept thinking about was, you know, like, my guy friends probably won't care, but what if someday I have a girl over the boat and she's like, "Oh my God, you have such a nice boat, but ew, you want me to go in that?" So, yeah, I had to come up with a better solution.
Well, sometimes you need to know when to give up. So this time I spent a bunch of money and I got myself a brand new composting toilet. You can see all the compost in there, and the agitator handle, which was considerably thicker than what I had made. This thing was just pretty tight, you know. It wasn't going to leak, and everything was going to go exactly where it's supposed to go, and it'll be easy to clean, etc. So that's one less thing I need to worry about while I live on my boat. Well, that seemed to be the theme this past month. And woodworking projects, that didn't quite work out. Here's another example of something that I was working on. These are just carpet tacks, and I nailed them to these planks, and I wound up painting on some texture on top of this. At least I didn't put a lot of time and effort into this one. Here it is, actually almost working. It's a gangplank. It's a way to get onto the dock to make the transition a little easier for the dogs. Problem was, this is what it's going to look like when the tide is high. And Yeah, that's not gonna work. Oh well. I guess if there's like any kind of moral to this story, or to this video I should say, it's that you shouldn't be afraid to fail, because some of your projects aren't going to work out that good. Well, like this thing here, or my scale blinds, or the DIY toilet. But it doesn't mean you should give up, because sometimes things actually do work out. They seem to especially work out when you throw a lot of money at it. See, under these cushions here in the galley, ta-da! That's a 16,000 BTU air conditioner by Marine Air. This thing's got heat too, to warm my Florida bones this winter. So I was pretty happy about that. It was also going to help keep the dogs cool. All I had to do was press the little button here on the thermostat. And out comes lovely cool air. Yeah, that's wonderful. So sometimes things do work out. Well, I hope I don't have to keep throwing money at the boat like that. Yeah, right. I know better. But at the very least, maybe I hope that some of my DIY projects work out in the future a little better. I don't know. You'll just have to stay tuned and find out. In the meantime, I've got my editing done. I got a video for you guys. I've gotten some work done to the boat. It's time to have a little fun time again. Thank you. So I guess I'll see you guys out on the water. Thanks for watching.